Right, good morning everyone. Welcome to the Shareholder Committee for Care Dorset Holdings Limited. Just before we start, those of you that are used to using the sound system will know you have to speak directly into the microphone. And if you've got mobiles, put them on silent, please, so we don't get a tune during the course of the meeting. The first item is the appointment of Chair and Vice Chair. Well, it falls to me to appoint as Leader of Council, so I've decided to give Jane a little bit of flexibility in a role that she's got as portfolio holder, that I will be the chairman of this committee and Laura will be vice chairman. So I think that's the right approach to that. Chris, apologies.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Just to confirm, we've had apologies this morning from Councillors Quayle and also Councillor Suttle. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minutes of the meeting on the 12th of April. Can we sign those as a true record? I'll take silence as agreed. Agreed, thank you. Declaration of interest. Anyone got any interest they want to declare? I would have thought probably not. Public participation. Any public participations?
No public participation today, Chair.
Same with councillor questions. Any councillor questions?
No councillor questions have been received.
Thank you very much. And we move on to agenda item 7, which is terms of reference. And as I've said in a previous committee, we get these before us beginning of a new term, new council year. And I do believe there's been a few minor changes to the appendix, but the actual terms of reference themselves haven't changed, have they? Do you agree? So we're just noting the terms of reference to this committee, so I shan't seek any more than that. So we go on to agenda item 8, the Dorset Council operational update, and I'm going to look at Jonathan Price.
Thank you, Chair. So the report attached details progress. I am pleased to report very positive progress during the quarter. We went live with our commissioning strategies at the end of last year, and work has continued to align those with the priorities for the company. So good progress made. Of note, the reablement beds, I think, are of particular note. Huge activity to get those up and running. And up to the full numbers, and they are delivering very, very well for the system at the moment. So big thank you to Care Dorset for their work there. There are a series of recommendations to note. So for the committee to note the continued progress made in the development of the relationship between commissioners and Care Dorset. For the committee to note priority areas being addressed and plans in place to develop Care Dorset's priorities in line with Dorset Council's A Better Life commissioning strategies, and the committee to note progress on improving data flows between Care Dorset and the Council, and the continued work that's underway. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thanks, Jonathan. Jane, just a comment?
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry. Yes, I think the important parts are the positive aspects of the relationship and the work that has happened at pace actually and been achieved. So I'm very happy with that.
I think there's something to be said for something it's actually very satisfactory, because we end up with not a lot to say. Whereas if there were issues, then we'd spend quite a long time debating the concerns and the potential solutions. I think what I see here, I don't know whether anybody else agrees with me, is really good progress. We're embedding the Care Dorset in the right way. We're building those relationships, and you know what, we're here to challenge. And what I see in this report as a really clear overview that things are going as we would expect them to go. So I think that's ringing endorsement, certainly from me, and I'm probably going to get nods from my two colleagues in the room and officers generally, that this is good progress, and let's keep it up. So I'm not going to dwell on this report any longer, because I think enough's already been said. So let's move on then to agenda item 9, which is the appointment of Chairman of Board of Directors. Steve, are you dealing with this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We are going to ask that Caroline rescind herself from the room for this item, if that's okay. Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I will take the report as read, but pull out some key highlights. We have some recommendations for this committee as the appointing body of the Chair of the Board. Some of the key elements is that we've conducted a really thorough and robust recruitment exercise for our next Chair of the Board. We had a very intense and enjoyable day a few weeks back where we had good representation across the Care Dorset organisation, particularly from the people we support, family members and colleagues that are employed within Care Dorset, as well as stakeholder representation from both officers and members. So we were very pleased to have Councillor Jane Somper as part of our technical panel, and we had Andrew Billany as part of our stakeholder panel, and had a full day of interviews, tests, informal discussions, and really sort of testing out a good and robust chair of the board. I am delighted to say that we are putting forward the recommendation of Caroline Tapster for an initial 2-year term with the option to extend to a further 2-year term as part of the full term. We are satisfied that it was a good interview process, which hopefully has brought out all of the elements that we would want, particularly our ongoing and positive relationship with our shareholder as we work through. Caroline brings a particular wealth of experience in both local government, health and social care, so we think she will be a very credible and desirable chair of the board for Care Dorset. So I commend to the committee the recommendations for Caroline as our chair.
Much, Steve. Laura.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to offer my thanks, I think, for points 12 and 18, really just to draw out that inclusive lived experience panels of staff and people who use our services. I think that's absolutely critical, and I think I'm delighted to see that in there. And yeah, it looks like a really good, thorough, and like you say in the report, inclusive recruitment process, which is excellent. So thank you.
Jane?
Thank you. I mean, I can only echo the comments, and it was a very impressive process, actually. And I have been involved with various recruitment activities for a while. It was one of the most impressive that I had seen, and particularly, as you stated, Laura, having the users of the service very much involved and very much part of that. Very important to hear, their comments. So it was an enjoyable but intense, robust day and process.
Thank you very much, Jane. Right, I don't think we need to dwell on this any longer, actually. Again, I support the views about the robust nature of the way in which you've gone about this. There's no reason at all why you shouldn't appoint to this role. The recommendations are in 19 and 20. I don't intend to read them out. We're all capable of reading. I think they set it out very well. So can we agree? I'll take silence as a yes. Great, thank you very much. You can call her back in, I guess. Well done. Congratulations. Well, let's move on to agenda item 10, change to Care Dorset financial year. Steve, you're going to kick this off?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is a simple report, really, just to do a move date of the end of year for both of our companies. So for clarity purposes, Care Dorset Holdings has a subsidiary company, which is the delivery arm of Care Dorset. So we have Care Dorset Holdings and Care Dorset Limited. The way they were formed was it two separate points in time during the transition process. So both of those companies have two different end dates. And what we're looking to do is a merger with a slight deferment further back, effectively putting into place a period of dormancy up until the point of just before going live at the end of September, and then a full year's trading taking us through to the end of September. We believe that this does not cause any concerns or issues for the shareholder, and particularly for DC finance team's end-of-year reporting. We believe we've got a mechanism for being able to reconcile our half-year accounts with DC's full-year accounts, so that shouldn't be a technical issue. But it does allow us to do a robust end-of-year process and for us to have a good period of audit at the end ready for our year-end purposes. So it's a technical paper asking for a deferment, which again is a decision for the shareholder, which we are recommending.
I'll get Aidan to comment. Aidan.
Thank you. Good morning. Aidan Dunn, Exec Director, Corporate Development, Dorset Council. So a helpful paper and straightforward, and one that I think Dorset Council can support in principle. It's sort of aligning the reporting timetable. My slight anxiety and nervousness is around the mechanics of this. So this, slightly boringly, it's about Dorset Council's ledger and the accounts that Dorset Council run. Everything's set up 31st of March. So we need to find a mechanism of being able to get out part-year data and align that for the future of Care Dorset. I think this. The fundamental principle is that Dorset's the council system is big and clunky. What Care Dorset needs is something agile. So hopefully Care Dorset, with our support, will be moving away towards their own ledger at some point in the near future. So I'm slightly nervous about the mechanics of being able to achieve this. So happy to support the recommendations in principle, but I'd like just a further exchange of agreeing a plan of the mechanics of how we're going to download the information and how it's going to be transferred across. So happy to support the recommendations, but we just, if we're going to agree an action point, as having a plan of the mechanics of how we do it.
It's a very useful and sensible approach, Aidan, if I may say so. You're content with that, aren't you? Because you can see the logic in that, Steve. Yeah. Anybody got a comment? It all looks pretty straightforward to me. Want to come back?
Yeah, just a very quick response, Chair. Recognising that we are placing the burden on Dorset Council and their system is geared up, rightly so, for your system accounting. As we are doing a variance, we will put the effort and the time in to make sure that we can help you doing the variance that we need to report on ours rather than the other way around. So we'll give that commitment absolutely to Aidan to say we'll work with you to make sure that that does not become a burden on Dorset Council.
On that basis, then, the recommendations set out in 14 and 15. Again, I won't read them, but they're clear there. Are we all content? Agreed. Thank you very much. Right, we go on to agenda item 11, Care Dorset update, and I think that's you again, Steve, isn't it?
If I may, I'm just going to say a few words by way of introduction before passing on to Steve. And first of all, to say thank you for approving my appointment. I'm delighted with the role, and I know I've got a really good team. We built a good team around us, and I'm looking forward to working with the council and with partners to really make a success of Care Dorset. So I'm delighted. I'm Dorset born and bred as well, so it's particularly pleasing to be able to take this forward. Just a few points by way of introduction. At our last meeting, we agreed that we would produce an update report that could be put into the public arena in order to aid greater transparency, and so that this could be either all of it or parts of it could be used by members or by partners to be able to say more coherently what Care Dorset have been doing. So we've done that. Secondly, you asked us for more data, again, so that you could monitor against performance, but also to aid transparency. Now, this is very much work in progress, so we would really value your feedback as to whether we have given too much, not enough, can we present this differently? So this is a first attempt at putting together this type of report. I suppose thirdly, just to say, I'm really pleased to hear the comments from commissioning colleagues. I think that we've established a really good relationship, and I'm very optimistic that going forward we can more closely align our work of Care Dorset with the commissioning plans, but also with the wider intentions of the council. So I'm pretty optimistic for the future. So I'll hand over to Steve.
Thank you, Caroline. And to echo many of those points, we, from a operational delivery of Care Dorset perspective and certainly from a managing director's overview, we are delighted with the relationship that we have with Care Dorset as our shareholder, our key commissioning partner, our block funder. We have a multitude of relationships that add so much value and benefit to both parties in this. And we have shared aims. That is absolutely part of this. This presentation will be that our desire to do well is for the people of Dorset, which is exactly the same desire of Dorset Council. We have so much synergy and harmony in the work that we do. It's, to some extent, some of the challenges that we have faced in the first 9 months have been as a result of no fault of either of our parties. So the decision to transfer the contract was based on a number of key factors. I think what we have found in the first 9 months or so is quite a few of those factors were absolutely justified. And that's where some of the challenges have been, but they've been shared challenges. There is no fault on either party. It's about working through some of those residual challenges, and we will get to the end of those very rapidly, I believe. And to some extent, that is when the excitement really comes into the play of all of the positive things that we can then do for the residents of Dorset as we've picked up. So I'll take through a short presentation. I'll do it relatively briskly, taking that people will be run, but there are some key points that I'd like to pull out, and particularly some of our success points. I think there's some real positives that we can take for both the residents of Dorset, but also the economic impact we are already having for the residents of Dorset, which aids the council plan. So on a multitude of levels, we are really pleased. Very quickly, as I'm having a technical problem. There we go. Just who we are. So many of you will. That's a photo of.
It's a very old photo.
You might recognise some of us, but not all of us, including one of our non-executive directors being a council officer and some good, solid non-executive directors with good experience in the sector. So we are delighted with our non-executive board, which is now full and stable. I'm going to have to do that manually because it's not working. Our executive directors, myself, Chris, who's here as well, our finance director, and Emily Denham as our director of operations. So we have a good, solid team at the helm of Care Dorset, and I think this will allow us to come strength to strength with really delivering on the council's priorities for this organisation. A little bit of stories about what have we been up to. So we have been a little bit head down. We have tried to sort of bring our head up to take a breath and stock check, but it has been a bit busy for the last 9 months. We just wanted a bit of a sort of impact report, a 9-month impact report, and there's been some real positives. One of the things we are delighted about, and I think the bit that probably resonates with all of us in the room, is around the quality of the lives of the people we support. Many times since transfer, I've described the journey of improvement, and that continues. And it is one of the successes that we hold on to, is that we are seeing both quantitative and qualitative evidence of the improvement to the people that we support. That's why I get up in the morning to come into work. So we are delighted with that. The relationship with Dorset Council, that is an absolutely key fundamental to the way that we work. We are side by side in this endeavour to make a success, and I think that's one of the things we are really delighted with as we come forward. And to some extent, we had the opportunity to suggest back into the peer forum some of the success that we had seen already was through the commissioning approach, which is both brave and innovative. There is not many councils that would have taken both the bold and courageous decision to establish its own local authority trading company and to step into the space of trying to fix what could be described as quite a broken care market. Dorset Council should absolutely be lauded for the work that it's done in establishing itself as a true innovator and pioneer in a different way of delivering care. I think that is absolute testament to our commissioning and ASE colleagues in taking that step. So we were delighted to be able to provide that feedback, and I think that is one thing we will continue to support and sing from the rooftops about. The other success that I will particularly pull out is our recruitment in what is a challenging national picture of recruitment, including a quite specific difficulty in Dorset for all of the demographic pressures of a reducing working age population and increasing older population. We have seen immense success in the recruitment field, and it is about pitching correctly both the pay and non-pay benefits of a career in care. And we'll take on a couple of slides shortly around the messaging that supports the professionalism of the care workforce and the absolute dedication and support that we need to offer, which is not just reflected in the pay, which is one element of people coming in, but people who come into care are genuinely a bit of a different breed. They want to have both the support and the recognition of the amazing work that they do day in, day out, week in, week out. And I think that's what we're trying to say. We are an organisation that will support our colleagues in all of their endeavours, their professional development, their career developments, their day-to-day challenges and struggles. We can be that provider that does do that wraparound support for our colleagues. There's a couple of other bits. The reopenment beds have been hard work, but hugely satisfying. The impact we have seen for our own workforce in their professional development, but to the system. We've already had more than 300% of the number of beds through since we went live. That adds real both tangible benefits and intangible benefits to the people of Dorset. We're providing person-centred leadership across the sector. So although we have been a bit inward-looking, we've been from very early days supportive of the wider care market in Dorset Place, particularly working with Partners in Care, the overarching body, and those smaller providers that don't have our size and infrastructure to provide things like informal support, information about overseas recruitment. We are being that anchor organisation that our size and scale allows us to do. We want to be a positive force for good in the care sector rather than a negative an element, and I hope we are delivering on that. Some of the financial benefits we believe are our effort of focusing on both quality and delivery. A lot of our measures have started to show that. Our occupancy levels, our efficiency levels, our productivity levels are all up, significantly up since October last year. We have been able to generate from some of our own small surplus capital investment in improving the physical environment of the ones that we work, but also into schemes like the reopenment beds and some of our day services. We are investing in both our own colleagues and some of our health partners in how we start to do it. So we are absolutely talking about the Dorset pounds. So the money of Dorset that comes to us in our revenue being spent within the Dorset area. So we are absolutely committed to making sure we do as much of that Dorset spend in Dorset as we can, and that's really part of our ethos. I'm just going to go through some quick numbers. I won't go into too much detail. Staffing position, it's a bit of a show and tell of my narrative. We haven't improved our full-time equivalent and headcount numbers quite significantly since point of transfer. We've certainly started to reduce the number of agency colleagues that were being used at the point of transfer. We are replacing those with our own directly employed, which adds benefit and value to the organisation. We've been particularly pleased with the number of starters, so we are getting good numbers month on month. We see that with the seasonal peaks and troughs, particularly summer period is not a good time for care recruitment, as is the run-up to Christmas, but post-January, certainly in spring and autumn, we're seeing good above industry numbers that are starting to come through in our recruitment. Some bits that people might find of interest are total numbers. One to note, as a good employer, as an attractive employer, we have a slightly above average demographic of age profile. So it's a challenge for the future rather than a challenge for today, but we are slightly higher than the industry average for the age profile of our colleagues, and we're particularly trying to think, certainly with our colleagues in the council and the wider health and social care system, a kind of academy style about how do we have a shared workforce of those care professionals that are coming in who might want a career out of care into health or people in health who might want a rotation back into us. So we're trying to think of innovative ways of starting to diversify, but we're really committed and keen about how we do some of our recruitment and start to attract the younger generation coming through. Of not particular interest, we're pretty average with the industry about female to male population. As a managing director of an organisation that is particularly weighted to the female, I take a particular pleasure and interest of making sure we represent the voices of our female colleagues at the senior. So we are about elevation of our female colleagues up throughout the organisation, and that will be part of. What does help is our executive team gender ratio is 50-50. So we have a really good solid voice of perspectives within our senior team and our senior leadership team as well, the next level down. Key numbers. We have a breakdown of where our referrals come in. So this is month by month since January when we were able to start recording in a cohesive way. It's a good building picture. May's information was not full month, so it was about average, but we are seeing good numbers. And where we start to go through with this, it's really helped with our delivery of value and occupancy. So our occupancy levels of the block contracts that we have with Dorset Council are making good strides upwards, and we continue to do that. And we're working with our partners in both health and social care around making sure there's no barriers to making sure we maximise the value to Dorset Council on those block contracts that you have with us. Again, a different interpretation. The orange block particularly is our occupancy level and the bed nights that are utilised month on month. As you can see, we are pushing both upwards and downwards on that. So it's the availability of the block is reducing as we start to get more people in. And the unavailable beds, those that are, had needed some capital investment works, be that painting, decorating, flooring, etc. We are doing that capital investment to get them up to standard to then be relet in. So we're really pleased with this, and we see this being an increasing picture. A slide that I am particularly pleased about. This is one of probably the key driver of values to Dorset Council. This is your block contract that you have with us for our residential care home beds. You'll see the dotted line on the left-hand side being the transfer point from the previous provider to ourselves. So to the left of that was the occupancy levels of the block contract before, and then we've got a section point at December, March and mid-June. We are making massive strides in supporting the system and making sure the right people who do need to go into residential care are having that as an available option alongside, and of course I'm going to refer back to this, a significantly improved quality of service of those people that are coming in as well. So we are particularly pleased with our residential occupancy levels. A couple of bits that I'll just slip through. Revenue analysis. So this is where we as a company receive our funding from. As you'll see, and should be expected, the vast majority of our funding is from Dorset Council, either through the block contract or through the reopenment beds winter pressures. We are still TECL compliant, so as shareholders, we are still well within the TECL threshold of 80% of funding coming through the local authority, so we're well within that margin. And we have smaller amounts of either private funders or other incomes from other sources. Going through with this, it's now just a slight breakdown about where that revenue then goes. The blue block is our residential care. Orange is on our day services, our community-based day services. Grey is our reopenment services, and then supported living. So our four main business areas are covered within that, and you can see the disproportionate level of funding into the right areas according to the block contract analysis. So we then start to go through. This is just then a further breakdown of the same information. As a people-led business, the vast majority of our revenue goes on pay. It's about 75%, give or take. We are seeing a slight increase in that, rightly so, as we start to increase our productivity and our performance against the block. We would expect the pay levels to go up, and we think to get to correct levels, we will be somewhere between 75 and 80% pay as a revenue breakdown when we start to get to full occupancy or near enough on all of our block contracts, which we expect to be within the next 6 to 12 months is our horizon for that. A couple of bits where I wanted to do as shareholders, I'm sure you have an interest in how we perform against other organisations, and I have put a certain previous provider on this form, as well as good local providers as a productivity comparison. So to break this down, for every pound of pay, it's how much value do we have in revenue coming in. So it's a productivity measure. It's a quite broad one, but it's the industry standard for how we start to go through. So we benchmark really well. There are some better providers out there, particularly other not-for-profit organisations who are able to be productive, but we're making strides on that. But even as it stands today, we are pleased with how we have increased productivity. And to put that into context, we were about the same 135, 138% at the point of transfer. So our productivity has improved significantly since the point of transfer. So we expect that to continue through. Second element, it's another productivity measure. It's the overhead costs. So the delivery of the business, in addition to the revenue that we generate in the 4 business areas, we have a central overheads cost. What does it cost the company to deliver? And mostly it's done internationally, so a kind of performance figure. So within that, which is probably not very easy to see, health and social care is lumped together, as is often the way. I'm sure adult social care commissioners will have a little wry smile at that, but effectively companies that operate in the health and social care sector generally have a sales and general administration benchmark of somewhere between 12 and 43%. That's the 10% in median. We're 20%. So we're well within the top quarter. We're 1% better than we were expecting to be. So we're doing well. It shows that we're not burdensome in our head office costs. We have quite an agile and light head office position. There might be a position where, as we start to become more responsive to the commissioning intentions over the next 5 years, that actually we need to invest a little bit more in head office to be as responsive as we need to be. But we're trying to balance that at the moment of really focusing down on the quality improvement and having a safe operating environment. What we might review is to say, could we balance a little bit of higher overhead costs to be quicker and responsive and much more able to meet those challenges in a responsive manner than we have been to date. But that's a conversation for the 6 months, 18 months, 24 months as we go through. But today, I'm very pleased with where we are for our productivity measures. I hope that I will never come to one of these meetings where I don't talk about one of the people stories. And Tim is one of those stories that I am really delighted about, both from a personal point of view for Tim, but also about the changing culture. And I think that's what I want to hold on to for our workforce. So Tim's a lovely chap. He lives in one of our supported accommodation services in the south of the county. I've met him on a couple of occasions, and every time I talk to him, he is absolutely devoted to Aston Villa, like properly devoted to Aston Villa. His bedroom is covered in posters, kits, videos, DVDs, the whole shebang. There was a conversation with colleagues, not myself, about actually he'd love to go to a football game, and previous provider had no interest in just opening the door to be able to facilitate what isn't a particularly any of us, if you want to go to a football game, it takes a bit of planning, but it doesn't take a huge amount of planning to go to do that. It was a change of culture of saying, Tim wants to do something, how do we make it happen? Slight faux pas, and we booked tickets in the Southampton end. A couple of very panicky and quick phone calls got that resolved, but Tim had a delighted session out with Aston Villa, and they won. So good all round. What also then happened is one of our colleagues happens to be friends with one of the footballers of Aston Villa as well. So we've actually had a further connection post this story going out of Tim's actually got to meet a couple of the footballers himself and got a signed kit. So it's really that kind of changing culture within Care Dorset where we are giving permission to our colleagues to say, what is the art of the possible? How do we really start to improve the lives of people we support? What are we here for? And it's this. It's the stories about positively improving. If I can ask a bit of forbearance, I'm going to do a short video, which I hope is going to play. But this takes it from the long-term care into the reablement space, which is one of the areas that Care Dorset wants to make a name for itself. So actually, we're already making good strides in saying, how can we be a real system partner in supporting people in and out of hospital? And I'm hoping that this is going to work. Let's see if I can come through. We've got it was designed as a recruitment video, but there's a story in the middle of this, which
Most people want to stay at home.
Our reablement service is key to how we support people back to independence after a period of ill health. This means providing care and support to help them stay out of hospital, and also supporting them in their own home when they come out of hospital. This is what we did for Carol Place, supporting her back to independence in the home and community she's lived in for 48 years.
Carol first came home, she had fractured her shoulder, she had fractured her pelvis. She was in a pretty poor way, in a lot of pain, weren't you, Carol?
Yeah.
Previous to that, Carol was completely independent.
I couldn't wait to get home, and they've helped me. Well, I couldn't even walk when I come home. It ended up with me having a stick and a push-along trolley. Since then I've been trying to get fit again. With a lot of help from the carers. They've been really, really good.
It's taken a few weeks of doing it, but with lots of working together, she has slowly regained her independence, and reablement is about to come to an end with no further care needed.
We have a team of people within our reablement service that absolutely have an undeniable passion and commitment to provide the best possible reablement care they can. There are just so many highlights to work in within the reablement provision, so many.
So just to put that into context, Carol came out of hospital with a prescription of 4 calls a day. So needed a morning, lunchtime, dinner time and evening. After just under 6 weeks, we were able to leave Carol needing no further support. This is a real testament of success to the investment in our colleagues. When we transferred the service in, the reablement team were doing about 25 individuals a week. That was about the capacity. We've nearly doubled that. So our average for the last 4 weeks is 48 individuals. So we are really making strides into that positive impact we can have within the health and social care system, and having some really good conversations with our adult social care commissioners who, if I can give the credit where it's due, are again stepping into that really innovative space of saying, how do we mix this up? How do we, with a blank sheet of paper, make a real difference from start to finish of both helping people come out of hospital, but also stopping them going in? That's a really sensible space of helping health colleagues in making sure that people who don't need to be in hospital don't go in the first place, and we're relishing that challenge, and we'll absolutely support that. We're averaging about 500 hours a week in reduction of care. So through the reablement service, that passes back a tangible benefit of about £11,000 a month to the council of care that would have gone in if the reablement service wasn't there. So there's a real benefit to the system, but also the benefit to the people who don't need to have care on an ongoing basis. We are stepping into that space of making sure we absolutely maximise people's independence. That should be our one and primary aim. As we've supported with the reablement beds, we're also supporting about 30 individuals a month now to go through those beds, be supported and go back out the other end. Again, we're estimating that's about £15,000 worth of savings of people who would have historically gone into residential care settings, that because of that intensive support through the reablement beds, be able to go back home again. So there's a real benefit to the system, and it's so pleasing for us as a provider to be supported by our commissioners in saying this is the right thing to do, and we're working together in partnership to get the very best model. This is I think this could be one of the best models in the country of how we support people in and out of hospital. Moving on quickly, just some of those particular recruitment successes. We've had over 2,000 applications since we went live in October time. So I politely but firmly challenge anyone that says that recruitment care is difficult. It is difficult, but it needs a bit of hard work with it. We've got an exceptional director of HR that's supported us in our recruitment exercises. We are stepping into spaces that I don't think other providers are doing. That kind of, where can we start to support people doing transfer from other industries? Where can we start to support people back into the workplace who might have had a bad experience previously? We're doing some of the bits around sort of trying to get the hard to find people who might start to step in. We've had nearly 200 colleagues starting that, and there's always going to be attrition. So there's people who retire, who decide to not work anymore. But our net position, as you would have saw from one of the previous slides, is we are on an upward trajectory. I think that's a really positive message about the health of the care industry, and actually, when done right, it can benefit all of us, and certainly we will help the sector in some of our learning and how we go with some of that. I won't touch on many of these. As I've gone through on a couple of occasions, we are focused on the quality. We've had to, for the residents of Dorset, make sure that the service that they get is as good as we would all have our ambition to be. So we have been probably 80-20 focused on quality and everything else around it, but that is paying dividends now as we're starting to put those bits into place. And particularly, one of the things that has worked well is our strong managerial presence across the organisation, both within services and the organisation. We're making sure that actually we are there and present. Just a bit about our values. That's who we are. That's what makes us tick. It's why we get up in the morning and why we come into work. And what are we doing next? We think we've got about another 6 to 12 months of heavy lifting on the quality purposes. It's not an equal platform. Some services need more help than others. We're putting that help where it's needed. Some services, as been evidenced by the reopenment service that was inspected by the CQC a few months back now, that is, we've been able to evidence our dividends and our benefit of that approach to improving quality. We hope as we start to go through a wider CQC inspection regime that will also be able to evidence that quality improvement. And the other one, we're talking both positively and conductively with our commissioning colleagues. Actually, one of the benefits of being a local authority trading company is being able to be responsive and supportive. Our commissioners have put out an ambitious 5-year strategy for adult social care. That's been really interesting to have those conversations about, well, how can we help? Where do you see your local authority trading company stepping into the spaces of being either a partner to or a delivery vehicle for some of those commissioning intentions? We already have 2 very productive conversations going on. We've done one with the reopenment beds, and we really look forward to that kind of co-production opportunities with our commissioners about what we can do for the future, and really sort of seeing how some of those riskier and more innovative opportunities that commissioners might wish to embark on, actually we can help de-risk. Actually, where the external marketplace might shy away from some of those slightly more riskier propositions, the absolute joy and pleasure of being a local authority trading company is we can de-risk some of those in a partnership approach. So I think this is going to be a really positive next few years as we start to go into some of this. One of those opportunities, I'll have a quick quote but won't go too much. We're really positive about St Martin's Extra Care Scheme. Commissioners are hugely ambitious for the Building Better Lives programme. It's always hard getting new build properties out of the grounds. As a bit of a seasoned care professional, I can relay a whole number of stories of new build developments taking longer than thought, to be more difficult, but Dorset Council's persevered, and actually there's one which is about to come to fruition in Gillingham. We're delighted to have been appointed as the preferred care and support provider into that, and working hand in hand with our commissioners and with the housing provider to really do a model of care which supports people to not have to go into a more intense care environment. Absolutely in the same methodology of our reopenment service. How do we support people to stay at their home for as long as possible in an independent way? And certainly one of the innovations that we see in the St Martin's scheme, supported by commissioners, is that strength of community, something that is abundant and absolutely part of the Dorset DNA. What is going on in the local communities? What's the VCSE doing? What's the little church group doing down the road? What's the Local Age UK group doing? We are being supported to be the sort of convener of things that are already going on to add benefit to the people that are living in the Gillingham area. Again, I think this will be a real success in making sure that we support people to be as independent for as long as possible. I'll take a pause point at that from an organisational update. I've got 2 small sections to do on strategic risk and finance, but this is a juncture, or would you like me to go through to the end and then?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, very interesting presentation. Well done. A lot of good progress. Jane, do you wish to comment?
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I think you've really brought this to life, Steve. You know, reading through documents and slides, you've been able to really explore and explain and highlight the really important work that's been done, the enormous progress that has been made, which appears to have happened smoothly, although I'm sure it hasn't been as straightforward as it would appear to be, which I suppose is a testament actually to the work that goes on in Care Dorset. They make things appear easier than they perhaps are. Those CQC inspections on the reablement centres, I think, is fantastic. I mean, I think that, you know, it was a real shining moment, actually. And obviously, moving forward, there'll be more of that coming through. So just overall, just really strong and really positive, and working, you know, alongside the commissioners, as you say, but also with other partners, other outside partners, the NHS as well, and linking all these important areas that that sit within Dorset and need to work together, instead of, you know, perhaps how relationships may have been in the past. It's much smoother, and you've been very much, or Care Dorset has been very much a part of that. So well done.
It doesn't take long to talk about success, but I think it was important this morning that you gave that presentation, because it did give us a really clear understanding about the wisdom that went into the initial decision to have set up Care Dorset, and what you've done, you and the team have done with it since we made that decision. Huge progress. Obviously, still more to do. As always, with any business, there's always opportunity to develop things. But great start, really great start, and you should be commended for that. Have you got something else you want to follow on with, or is this going to be going into exempt on that?
Thank you, Chair. No, there's 2 further sections on strategic risk and finance. I'll take them as read. So the slides are in the pack for purposes of this. It's just one of the requirements within the shareholder agreement is to update on a regular basis around the risk. So we've done that within the pack. And we also have a financial update, which is there as well. And happy to take questions on either of those 2 sections if people have technical questions or specific questions.
That's a sensible approach. Any comments, Jane? Do you want to comment? You don't have to. No. Somebody got their microphone. Oh, we got it back now. Okay, well, thank you very much for the presentation. Really useful, good overview. And as I said earlier on, lots of positives for us to dwell on. Can we move on to agenda item 12, which is the forward plan? It says draft. They're always draft because they change all the time. Anybody got any comments, or do we just accept it? Do you want to comment about anything on there, Steve?
Just to clarify, we have an October and November date. I presume that's the hangover, so we might just want to make sure that we've got a clarification about which date we continue with, if that's okay. I think for the forward plan there's an October and November shareholder committee date, but we'll pick that up outside of. Yeah.
Right, as far as the forward plan is concerned, Anybody got any comments, or can we accept it? We receive it rather than accept it. We receive it, okay? Right, good. Let's move on then to, there aren't any urgent items, but we're going to go into exempt business now. There's a couple of items we need to deal with in exempt business, so I'll move exempt. Another seconder, please.
Happy to second.
Right, we'll just wait for the technology to tell us we're offline, and then we'll get on with our exempt business.